Coming up in This Week in Computer Hardware, Qualcomm's getting sued big time. A sweet budget PC build. Scythe Fuma means awesome heatsink. Sapphire Factory unlocks RX 460 shaders and 128 gigabyte Pixel XLs. Unobtainium. All that and more coming up next on Twitch.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Twitch is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
Hi, this is Leo Laporte, and once again, time for Twit's audience survey. We'd really like to hear from you. It's only going to take a couple of minutes, really. That's all. Just go to twit.tv/survey and let us know what you think. Your anonymous feedback will help us make Twit even better. And thanks for your continued support.
This is Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, episode 398, recorded January 19th, 2017. Yes, another giant hardware lawsuit.
This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron will send you fresh, high-quality ingredients to cook delicious meals with simple step-by-step instructions right to your door. See what's on the menu this week and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/twit. And by BarkBox. BarkBox paw picks the best all-natural treats and innovative toys for your dog and ships them right to your door. To receive a free month of BarkBox with your 6 or 12-month subscription and free shipping, visit getbarkbox.com/twit. And by Grasshopper. Stay connected and run your business from your mobile phone with Grasshopper. To save $50 on your order, visit trygrasshopper.com/twit.
Welcome to Twitch, This Week in Computer Hardware, Twit's weekly show that aims to bring you the most useful, most informative, most engaging, most delightful, most charming, and yes, most practical hardware advice here and in any other known or unknown universe. That's probably pushing it, that known and unknown universe thing. Ryan, are you excited to be talking about hardware on this fine day in January 2017?
I always am. There's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, the show notes for this week are, some weeks we struggle to find 5 or 6 things we actually want to talk about. And I think this week we're going to have 50 or 60 things we're going to try to go through, which may be a slight exaggeration, but not by much.
I literally have, I think, 35 stories in here. Some of them are related. But, the story I think most compelling, the story that really grabbed me, it made me think, goodness, we are finally making progress in an important area. The Verge did a great write-up on it. I heard about it on NPR, several other places. I think the Wall Street Journal was writing about it. I could be hallucinating that. Japanese toilet industry agrees to standardize complex bidet controls. This is actually the Japan Sanitary Equipment Industry Association, which includes Toto, Panasonic, and Toshiba. And basically what it comes down to, if you've ever traveled in Japan and had the experience of what I will affectionately call the smart toilet, although the Internet of Toilets I did not have a chance to see at CES this year, but I will be in contact with Toto about that later on. But there's icons that are used on toilets, and they are pretty much different from every manufacturer, which makes it really difficult if you don't, say, speak Japanese or read Japanese. So the Japanese Sanitary Equipment Industry Association has decided to standardize, has brought Toto, Panasonic, and Toshiba together to basically make all the happy little icons match across manufacturers. And you might laugh. I hear you laughing right now, but when you hit the wrong button and you get a shot of cold water where cold water doesn't need to be, or the toilet just basically starts leaping and dancing, let me tell you, you'd wish those icons were standard across different toilets. Because you're right. I'm just saying. Had a friend of mine recently had an experience with a Japanese toilet seat. Too indelicate to discuss on a family show such as this.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Apparently, this is kind of helping to. They're trying to be more tourist friendly going into the Olympics in 2020.
I can appreciate that. I have been there have been several times I've been out of the country where the hardware is different than I'd ever used before, and I had to figure out what to do with it. Now, luckily, I live in the age of the internet, and on demand, you can kind of find this information at your fingertips if you need to.
Yep.
Man, before that, oof, I don't know.
Oh, I
don't know what I'd have done. Well, that's true. At the end of the day, you just go and you just go. Yeah,
oh my
CNN.
goodness,
That's what you need. Yeah,
there you have it. Big news this week: Qualcomm. You know, we've been used to lawsuits have been flying left and right for years. Antitrust, anti this, anti that, anti everything. Samsung suing. You know, Apple, Intel. As I continue to struggle to have the least eloquent introduction to this story, I'll just read the brief from the Federal Trade Commission. They're charging Qualcomm with monopolizing key semiconductor device used in cell phones. So Qualcomm, of course, is the world's dominant supplier of baseband processors, devices that manage cellular communications in mobile products. The FTC alleges that Qualcomm has used its dominant position as a supplier of certain baseband processors to impose onerous and anti-competitive supply and licensing terms on cell phone manufacturers and to weaken competitors. So, yeah, it gets a lot deeper than that.
It's messy, yeah. And the obvious analogy is to what happened with Intel back in the 1990s and I think early 2000s, but mostly I think that was in the 90s, where they had a dominant position in the market, and the accusations were very similar, that they used that to adjust their negotiations with their customers and partners to kind of, hey, we'll give you this price if you don't use AMD parts. And the accusations here are more complex because now you're dealing with like baseband modems and processors and the kind of combinations thereof. But a similar idea.
Right? Because Qualcomm basically, you know, part of what came out in the FTC brief was that Qualcomm basically demanded exclusivity from Apple to reduce their patent royalties, which goes back to the fact that the patents that are part of the specs, Qualcomm apparently has refused to license these patents that have been integrated into the spec for various cell phone services, mobile phone services, which in theory, right, I'll quote the FTC again, in exchange for having their patented technologies included in the standards, participants typically commit to license their patents on what are known as fair, reasonable, and non-discriminatory or FRAND terms, right? Because they are part of the industry standard. So, yeah, you know, this is, the complaint's been filed. It'll probably go to the courts. You know, the big thing with this is, I think, in some ways, kind of the biggest thing coming out of this was, wow, somebody actually got one over on Apple. That was what a friend of mine said. Which
this was back before they were a major player in the cell phone market, and somebody said, we have more power than you. I don't think that would ever happen today, and I think that may be a result of what we saw with the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, where there were some phones that shipped with an Intel modem and some that shipped with a Qualcomm modem. And that might be, and there have been reports that the Intel modem was lower performing and worse on power consumption and all that type of stuff, maybe less reliable. But Apple may have gone into that knowing it just as a little like, hey, by the way, Qualcomm, we have this power now because, oh, I don't know if you noticed, but we're the most powerful company on the planet, probably.
Right.
But I mean,
one of the interesting things about in the Bloomberg article is they point out that you know, last month South Korea fined Qualcomm $890 million or 1.03 trillion won, and described its practices as monopolistic. That article's Qualcomm accused of forcing deal on Apple to thwart rivals. So. Yeah, this is going to get interesting and probably ugly before it gets uglier.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah.
You know, and of course, Qualcomm basically says, no. Qualcomm, in their response, believes the complaint is based on a flawed legal theory, a lack of economic support, and significant misconceptions about the mobile technology industry. The complaint seeks to advance the interest and bargaining power of companies that have generated billions in profits from the sales of products made possible by the fundamental 3G and 4G cellular technology developed by innovators like Qualcomm, which is a lot like saying, I can steal that song by that band because they're already millionaires. Yeah. I paraphrase. And they basically say the FTC, the portrayal of facts offered by the FTC as the basis for the agency's case is significantly flawed. And Qualcomm states that they have never withheld or threatened to withhold chip supply in order to obtain agreement to unfair or unreasonable licensing terms. So this is, of course, why it goes to the court. Qualcomm's kind of big, and they're kind of a big player, and they kind of have a lot of money. So this one's, and they kind of didn't do so well in Korea. It'll be interesting to see. How that turns out here in the United States.
Yep.
In more cheerful news, the Nintendo Switch is going to cost $300. It's going to be released worldwide on March 3rd. The TechCrunch, The Verge, but everybody else had the details going down on that. And Zelda Breath of the Wild will be available at launch, which means I know at least 3 people with no interest in buying a Switch who are now going to buy a Switch on March 3rd, 2017, or have it, pre-order it for March 3rd, 2017, just so they can play the latest version of Zelda. It is a peculiar device.
It has a lot of peculiarities, yes.
Go for it.
Well, I'm trying to debate, we could probably do a whole episode on just this device if we focused on it. I mean, it still is a Tegra X1 SoC-based product, so it shares a lot of similarities with, the hardware in the Shield TV, and in, what was it, the Pixel C tablet, which was a very expensive tablet, but essentially the same hardware. It has a 720p 6.2-inch touchscreen. It has 32 gigs of integrated capacity with an SD card expansion, I believe. The battery life is really weird. They're very upfront, which I'll give them credit for. Being honest, they claim as little as 2.5 hours or as much as 6.5 hours of battery life, depending on the game you're playing. And that's not usually something that is discussed with either laptops or mobile gaming devices at all. They kind of just give you one number. And Zelda being an example, they said you're going to get roughly 3 hours of battery life on this device when you're playing Zelda. So again, puts it into context of the more demanding the game is, the less battery life you're going to get. It makes sense to people who follow, computer hardware and technology and power consumption, all that stuff. But for normal consumers, that may be a little bit disconcerting that if you're playing something light and breezy, you can get 6 hours for your cross-country flight, but you want to play Zelda on it and you only make it a third of the way. It's going to be a problem. But keeping in mind that it also is meant to be docked and attached to a TV. Those Joy-Cons, the controllers on the side are interesting, if nothing else. They went into the presentation that they had the night before, and then the next day in New York City when they kind of let the press get hands-on with it, is an interesting story of how all this kind of stuff comes together. There's, for example, all of the controllers recently have wrist straps, right? So that when you're using motion controls, you don't actually accidentally put it through your TV. The wrist straps on these for the Joy-Cons actually have a functional purpose in that the piece of plastic that attaches to the controller makes the controller slightly bigger. So when you're holding only the single Joy-Con, like if you have multiple people playing, that the trigger buttons are a little bit easier to hit, even if you have normal adult-sized hands as opposed to little child hands. There's all kinds of interesting stuff here. There's not a huge game launch lineup for March 3rd. They've talked a lot about games that are going to come out in spring, summer, and fall, including like a new Mario game.
There's a really good article up on Wired. Chris Kohler wrote it. Nintendo Switch ain't for mom and pop; it's for diehard fans. And given that the last 2 Nintendo launches, they've been like, it's for everyone. It's for the family. The family can play tennis. The family can play dancing games. The family can, they basically they're keeping a short number of titles. They're launching with, one of their biggest.
That's going to bring in a lot of people that wouldn't normally care about this device, because even though the game will also launch on the Wii U the same day, not a whole lot of people bought the Wii U either. So, this is going to be your best way in. I am very excited for that particular game. I'm kind of excited for the whole system though. Like I'm a day one console person almost regardless of what it is, because it's going to be something new and interesting. And at least from Nintendo, it's going to be very different than everything else. You look at the Wii, you look at the 3DS, you look at the Wii U, and now the Switch. Like they've done very different things than what anybody else is doing, to various levels of success, mind you, but different nonetheless. So I'm down for trying all this out, for sure.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a Zelda single-player Mario game, a sandbox Mario game. Should be exciting to watch. So, have you? Are you going to buy one immediately?
I pre-ordered one. Yeah, like I said, I'm a day one console launch type of person. Like since the Xbox 360 revision came out, like we usually buy 2, bring one here and dissect it on a live stream, and then play the other one, because usually we break the first one. So we'll see if we actually go through with that again here. Yeah, no, I'm definitely gonna get one and see what it's all about. It's also just interesting from a technological standpoint to see how much effort Nvidia has put into creating this kind of gaming API for Nintendo and what kind of games you can build on it. Whether or not, Nintendo's not one to share their kind of games and intellectual property, but like the idea that it's the same architecture in the Nintendo Switch that exists in the Shield TV just makes my mind like, oh, what if they put Zelda? What if you could play Zelda on a Shield TV? It'll never happen, because it's the only reason they're selling these systems. But those are the kinds of things that go through my mind.
We should probably also mention that there is a new Shield, the 2017 Shield, with the lightest, tiniest hardware refresh ever. Generally consensus, Android Police and several other sites that got early hands-on with the Shield 2017, or the latest refresh, is that if you have a 2015 Shield, you don't really have any compelling reason to upgrade, because the older model is going to get Google Assistant, Smart Things, and Amazon Instant Video.
Will it get Google Assistant? I didn't know it actually did that. Okay.
According to Android Police, it will. None of it. It's kind of funny. A lot of these features aren't enabled yet on the 2017 version of it yet. I guess the older Shields won't get OK Google hot word detection.
Oh, right, because you have to have the new controller
unless you buy the new. Yeah, you'll have to buy the new remote to buy that.
Yeah, I gotcha.
There's Android 7.0 comes on the new one immediately, but a lot of the other stuff is not currently available. Gamepad looks a little bit nicer. The remote essentially looks exactly the same. And that's it's fantastic.
I'm excited to try 4K. This out. I have one of these in, and I want to do cord cutting, and this is a good option for that, I think. Like, I'm looking to try that experiment. Yeah,
probably a decade ago, and I wanted so much. Because from a hardware standpoint, this is a fantastic piece of engineering. From an application standpoint, it was just missing so many things I wanted. I will fire it in honor of your firing up the 2017 version. I'll fire up my 2015 version, and we can compare notes in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
I don't game enough on it to justify the gaming, and as a set-top box, I felt it was a.
It really comes down to what Google's ecosystem is, right? Like, Nvidia makes good hardware, but at the end of the day, they can only do so much of the operating system to make it compelling. It's what apps are available, how good the Google TV implementation is. I'm a big live television person, so I need the over-the-air support and that type of stuff.
That's a whole other conversation.
I know. Trust me, I'm getting into it. Unfortunately.
Yeah, well, there's ways to get. You need to talk to Robert Heron. Robert Heron has all of the answers on that for you. But the number of apps available for it just seems piddling. Not to be rude or cruel.
For
again,
like
I gave
streaming
up on
capability or
just period. Okay.
That's fair.
It's also I packed it away 6 months ago in disgust and haven't opened it up since. So.
Well, I think it's a good idea. I think in the next month. So let's put it this way: I have scheduled installation of Time Warner / Charter internet service in my house for the first time in 6 years, 7 years now, with the assumption that I will be dropping my normal DirecTV and low end fiber internet at the house for a faster internet to do streaming services only. I don't know how it's gonna pan out, but that's the plan. That's the plan.
This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by Blue Apron. Blue Apron is the #1 fresh ingredient recipe delivery service in the country. Their mission is to make incredible home cooking accessible to everyone while supporting a more sustainable food system, setting the highest standards for ingredients, and building a community of home chefs. Blue Apron delivers seasonal recipes along with fresh, high-quality ingredients to make delicious home-cooked meals. Each meal comes with a step-by-step, easy-to-follow recipe card and pre-portioned ingredients that can be prepared in 40 minutes or less. Save time and money. Shopping at the grocery store is 60% more expensive than Blue Apron. And if you spend a lot of time eating out or at high-end grocery chains, you can now spend under $10 per person for healthy home-cooked meals. Customize your recipes every week based on your dietary preferences and choose a delivery option that fits your needs. There's no weekly commitment, so you only get deliveries when you want them. Blue Apron delivers to 99% of the continental U.S. They set the highest quality standards for the community of over 150 local farms, fisheries, and ranchers across the United States. Blue Apron not only supports a more sustainable food system, it supports happy and healthy families. And research shows that Blue Apron families cook nearly 3 times more often. Because you know what? The food is brought to your house. It's delivered. New recipes are created every week by Blue Apron's culinary team and are not repeated within a year. Steak and green peppercorn sauce with kale and roasted potato. Cod and papaya with freekeh and spinach, seared pork chops with farro, Brussels sprouts, and cranberry chutney, potato and artichoke quiches with romaine and orange salad. Check out this week's menu and get your first 3 meals free with free shipping by going to blueapron.com/twit. That's blueapron.com/twit. And we thank Blue Apron for their support of This Week in Computer Hardware. Blue Apron, a better way to cook.
I will point out here, as an unsolicited addition to that advertisement, I have been for many months a paying Blue Apron subscriber, and I agree with everything, all the positives that you mentioned about it. I really do like the service, and for me, having a daughter now, like being home to cook is actually the improvement in family time is a legitimate thing that I didn't really have before. We always went out to eat. Which doesn't seem like it would be that different, but it's a very different thing when you're at home. So I would encourage you guys to check it out. I think it's fun, and I've learned more about cooking than I thought I would ever know in my entire life as well.
It's good that you're cooking.
Yeah.
And if you have more children, you'll be cooking more and more because they eat constantly. Oh my goodness. Good article up on Hard OCP. Kaby Lake 7700K versus Sandy Bridge 2600K IPC review. And man, quote, one of the biggest things asked in the last month is just how the 2600K stacks up against the new 7700K processor. So we got hold of one of our readers' 2600K systems and put it to the test. It was, I love Kyle and the crew. When it comes to synthetic benchmarks, who really cares outside of companies that build the technology they try to sell to us? And they say that in part because I think Kaby Lake's in their test was pulling a general 20% advantage. That's comparing Kaby Lake and Sandy Bridge at identical clocks. But then when you go to real world gaming, right, the delta becomes very, very narrow. Bottom line, if you own a highly clocked 2600K, 2500K Sandy Bridge processor and it's still giving you stable performance, it is hard for me to make the argument that it is time for you to upgrade, especially if you are a GPU limited gamer. So, you know,
which the majority of people are, to be fair.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's you know, the thing that gets more interesting is that the claims are that the 7700K will do will run at 5 gigahertz with full core loads and good cooling. The problem is Kyle says we have yet to see that proven, as only one of their 3 7700K processors has done a truly stable 5 gigahertz. So, you know, it's quote, hell, it has only been 13 years since we showed hard OCP readers a Pentium 4 at 4.44 gigahertz, right? Which is basically hard OCP's way of saying is they're ready. They're ready for a stable 5 gigahertz chip. So, you know, it's, yeah, Z170, Z270 motherboards and the chips look really, really good. But if you have a fast 2600K or 2500K,
I'd agree with that sentiment.
Yeah. You know, Sandy Lake's actually pretty good. Who knew? And
there you go.
Yeah, it's, man. Yeah. You know, when we look at deeply threaded encoding real world usages, the Kaby Lake surely shows some prowess, but it's only if you actually do something that has deeply threaded encoding. So, you know, if you're doing a huge movie maker cut at home and are in a rush and it cuts your render time down from 4 hours to 3 hours with your new 4K camera, then maybe Kaby Lake would be worth it to you.
Yep.
That's a slim endorsement. I think Kyle was being nice when he wrote that. It's a good article. HardOCP.com, Kaby Lake 7700K versus Sandy Bridge 2600K IPC review. Asus TUF 270 Mark 1 launch.
Yeah, this
preview.
is if you do decide to go with one of those Kaby Lake parts and you need a motherboard for it, there's a lot of Z270 options already out on the market. This is a pretty interesting one for people who are interested in either the aesthetic design, which is very particular for this. You've got a lot of that digital camo going on, the plastic shrouds and cover that kind of hides a lot of the PCB, but has openings at all the necessary locations. You know, a removable, like take one screw out, removable section for your M.2 port on there. A little bit of backplate on it as well. It's a nice looking motherboard. It is part of the TUF series TUF that is more or less aimed at higher reliability and less on like performance and overclocking. They still overclock just fine, but there's, you know, the impact here is less on feature set and performance and overclocking and more on, you know, making sure you've got the minimum levels of support you need for stuff, but then, you know, are you using extra caps? Do you have a fan drawing air across the PCB? Those types of things. It's a $250 board, so it's pretty pricey, although we were talking about last night, there are not a lot of inexpensive Z270 motherboards on the market, which is a little disappointing, right, considering how low cost some of the Kaby Lake parts can get, especially if we start looking into the world of those Pentiums that aren't quite out yet. But it's a good little review up here of a interesting board. Lots of different options here for you to take a look at. You know, you still got your 2-way SLI and Crossfire capability. Lots of fan headers, USB 3.1 Type-C. All that good stuff. And then you get all the standard ASUS software with it and firmware and capabilities and options there. So if you guys want to, looking for 270 boards, you want to check out a short story, Maury has that up on the site for us.
More boards as they arrive.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Jeremy Hellstrom writes, the Scythe Fuma SCFM-1000 may be the next favorite heatsink. 137 by 130 by 149 millimeters, 920 grams, which is hefty. Not the biggest cooler Jeremy or I have seen. but should work with all the mounts and all the new AMD chips with the appropriate clips. Quote, with a pair of 120 millimeter fans, the cooler beats out even AIO water cooler and does so extremely quietly. With the retail price of $46, this cooler deserved a gold award and did indeed earn one in the review. That's awesome.
Yeah, and for $46, that's pretty impressive.
Yeah. I'm down with that. You know, and I have a broken cooling fan right over here that may be on the short list for replacing. What's the word on the Seasonic Prime Titanium series power supplies?
This is this is an interesting review that Lee posted up, and as is normally the case, he went into a ton of detail with this. The Prime series from Seasonic is their first platform redesign in many years. I want to say like 7 or something like that. It's also their first dive into a purely digital PWM, pure digital power management system for the power supply itself. They are kind of, I would say it's fair to say they're late to that game, but their analog units that they built before that they will still be making for some time going forward are still amongst the highest rated, most reliable power supplies out there. So there are some advantages that digital PWM gives you in terms of efficiency and that type of stuff. But if you do the analog style right, there's not an inherent negative to it. Now, that being said, this is released in 850, 750, and 650 watt variants. They're pretty expensive. They're 80 plus titanium rated. So the 850 watt power supply is still 80 plus titanium, which I think means they have to stay over 94% throughout the entire usage curve. Maybe it's 93 or 92, but it's high. It's above 90. And it is a $209 power supply for the 850 watt version. So that is pretty pricey in the grand scheme of things, especially for an 850. If you just Google around or look at Newegg or Amazon for 850 watt power supplies, you're going to find some for quite a bit less. But in terms of quality, this has a 10-year warranty. It's got more protection, more acronyms that stand for protections that I know what they mean: OPP, OVP, UVP, over voltage, under voltage, that type of stuff. Gold-plated terminals, lots of multi-GPU header support, a fully modular design, which I'm a big fan of, so you can keep your systems nice and clean. Among the best, superior AC ripple noise control, hold up times above 30 milliseconds. Like, Lee had nothing but positive things to say this. The only weakness was like the close spacing of the connectors on the front panel that make kind of changing out those cables a little bit more difficult. Chances are that's only something you'll have to do once, so it's not really that big of a deal. Not a budget power supply series. It ranges from 159 to 209. So, but if you're looking for a high quality power supply, for a high performance build, something you're actually super concerned about the capabilities and protections on, it's worth checking out.
Cool. Oh my goodness. Sapphire releases AMD RX 460 with 1024 shaders. Sebastian wrote this up at PCPro.com. WCCF Tech was, I think, the first one to report on this one. Essentially a new version of the RX 460 listed on their site. You can go there from the PC Per article if you read Chinese, or you can go there if you probably can't read it if you don't read Chinese. But the count's unlocked. So instead of 196 instead of 196 stream processors, it's got 1024 via a BIOS update. Operating at 1250 megahertz. And other than that, it's pretty much a stock RX 460. And we do not know if it's going to be available outside of China. So
it's a little interesting for them to have released that because it was not actually an officially released GPU by AMD, the 1024 shader version. Only the lower shader count version was actually released. People had been hacking their 460s to open up to 1024 shaders, and now kind of like Sapphire releases a card officially. So now the questions in my head are like, did AMD approve of this, or did Sapphire just say, we're their biggest customer, what are they going to do, right? And this gives us a little differentiation point to have over everybody else. I don't know. It's a little bit interesting from that point of view, but otherwise, you're just looking at a fairly low cost product that is going to be faster than it would have otherwise been, and so it's hard to find fault with that if you're a consumer, at least. AMD might.
Yeah, this is an interesting game of chicken between Sapphire and AMD.
Indeed.
Maybe they figure with the new processor launches, AMD's too busy to notice.
They got a lot of other stuff going on. Even on the GPU side, they got a lot of other stuff going on.
If you have a small form factor computer, you will be delighted to know that Gigabyte was showing off half-height GTX 1050 and GTX 1050 Ti graphics cards. When I say half-height, I really mean it. 6.6 by 2.7 by 1.5 inches. And they have a little tiny single-fan cooler on there. That's pretty awesome. I'm pretty delighted about that. The 4 display outputs in the form of 2 HDMI 2.0B, 1 DisplayPort 1.4, and 1 dual-link DVI-D. I'm pretty stoked about that.
Half-height cards are a niche that are, when you need one, you need one. There's no way to really get around it. And there's not usually a lot of options for it, right? You're kind of limited to the 1050, 750 class of cards. I'm trying to think, when I was doing my 1050 Ti like upgrade story where I bought some systems at Best Buy, there were at least 1 or 2 systems on the shelf that would have required a half-height card that I didn't buy because there were no half-height 1050 or 1050 Ti options available. So now there are. It is a dual slot configuration, so it's something to, chances are any system that's going to have a half-height, expansion card slot at all is going to have 2 bays for it, hopefully. But it's good to have more of those half-height options for the super small form factor devices or small form factor chassis that people are building system in.
Options are always nice.
Oh, for sure.
Probably the end of Q1, $155 for the GTX 1050 Ti, about $130 for the 1050. Do yourself a favor, get the Ti version. Trust me.
Yep, I agree.
You'll be happier. This episode of This Week in Computer Hardware is brought to you by BarkBox. BarkBox delivers 4 to 6 natural treats and fun toys for your dog, curated around a surprise theme each month. BarkBox Paw picks the best all-natural treats and innovative toys to match your dog's unique needs, including allergies and heavy chewer preferences. All edibles are made in the USA or Canada, and 100% of their products are tested on animals, their own people. These guys like to keep it real. BarkBox is a great way to try to find a variety of treats and toys from local and small businesses that you may not otherwise be able to find. BarkBox also makes their own paw ducks through their Bark & Co. brand. They've shipped over 16 million toys and treats so far. That's a lot of happy dogs, people. Getting started with BarkBox is so easy. You choose your dog size, small and cute, up to 20 pounds, just right, 20 to 50 pounds, or big and bold. Man, that just sounds wrong. 50 pounds plus. Choose a plan. 1, 6, or 12-month plans are available. Get your BarkBox. BarkBoxes are shipped on the 15th of each month. BarkBox will keep your dog engaged, interested, and happy. If your dog doesn't like something in the BarkBox, they'll send you something else for free. Scout's honor. When your dog falls in love with something from the box, you can easily find it again on barkshop.com or the BarkBox app. You can cancel anytime, and shipping is free in the continental United States. You love your dog, don't you? Give your dog the joy of 1 million belly scratches. Get 1 month free and free shipping with your 6 or 12-month subscription by visiting getbarkbox.com/twit. That's getbarkbox.com/twit. And we want to thank BarkBox for their support.
I feel like all the ads this week are targeted at me specifically.
It's feeling that way.
Maybe it
Although
is.
you've invested in Blue Apron, you got 2 dogs, so you're going to need 2 BarkBox subscriptions.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. See if I'll go to the website after the show and see if there's a bulk discount. That's fine.
Perfect. What's Windows 10 Creators Update game mode?
I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that, to be honest with you.
I don't think anybody really knows the answer.
That's my feeling as well. So it was like a leaked out type of feature that somebody found, like a game mode DLL in one of the early preview builds that somebody had, and then they officially came out and they officially came out and announced it.
Yeah.
But they didn't give a whole lot of detail on what it actually does. So the story here is that there will be a game mode, and the quote. What are the quotes they have here? It is, quote, "It is intended to optimize your Windows 10 PC for increased performance in gaming." Yeah. Windows insiders will start seeing some of the visual elements for game mode this week, with the feature being fully operational in builds shortly thereafter. So I don't really know what any of this is about, really. We were kind of theorizing about this last night.
I mean, it sounds like a certain something we all know and love from Nvidia.
I mean, maybe it could be. To me, if you're Microsoft and you want to improve game performance, there are ways you can do it, right? If you are if you control the operating system, you control the API, right? If obviously if you're using DirectX 11 or 12, then in theory you could do things like prioritizing threads in a different way so that drivers and game threads get priority over anything else kind of running in the background. More or less kind of how modern routers can handle QoS, right? Sure. And things like that, right? So there's a theory on how you could do that. Now, my stance would have been that would be something they're already implementing, but maybe not. The discussion could be around the low-level access that developers get on the Xbox One, and maybe how do they implement a little bit more of that into the Windows 10, knowing that you have to be careful because now there's different CPUs, there's different GPUs, there's different storage devices, so it's a little bit more. It's quite a bit more difficult to manage that. But anything they can do to get us. Wow, I've gotten 8 people trying to call me from the same number in a row. It's so weird. If you get anything closer to what the efficiency you get on a console on your PC, it's going to be an improvement. Whether or not this applies to all games, whether or not this applies to only kind of Microsoft published games, they did say that it's going to be both Win32 and UWP games, so it's not just like Windows Store games that get these benefits. So I'm really interested to see what this does and what this turns into. And I think they said springtime is when we'll see that update, version 1703. So April release date is the rumor.
Interesting. Yeah. It's, a lot of Xbox features. Beam coming out on Windows 10 and Xbox One to stream your gameplay connected to your Xbox Live accounts. Be interesting. It's always funny when somebody when sort of the explanation for what something is comes out, and it's I don't know, man. It sounds like a very minor. The stuff that kind of concerns us the most sounds like a very minor version of the GeForce experience to me. But
it could, yeah. And they talk about visual elements, which is maybe the most confusing part to me. Like, what are the visual elements of game mode? That to me doesn't necessarily equate to performance, but there could be other elements of game mode that maybe implement something like automatic settings adjustments or something like that as well. So I don't know. Hopefully we'll learn more between now and April. So
speaking of learning more, Twit fans, we want to hear from you. Please take our new audience survey. It should only take about 2 minutes to finish. It'll help us get a general idea of who our audience is, provide better programming, and helps us pick advertisers we think you'd be interested in. Many of you take privacy very seriously, and we promise always to protect that. We do not identify you in any way in the survey. If you could take a few minutes, we'd appreciate it. Head over to twit.tv/survey now and help us learn a little bit more about who you are and what you're looking for from Twit. That's twit.tv/survey, and we thank you for your participation. I'm excited. You guys, now this content was sponsored by AMD. We should point that out right up front. But y'all built a budget BZ around the Radeon RX 460.
Yeah, you know,
about this build.
So they basically came to me and were like, "Hey, you know, what do you think about the RX 460?" And I had to kind of admit this, like, I don't know anything about it. I really haven't tested it. I haven't used it. And so they wanted to fix that. And they said, "Here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you the budget to build a system, you know, a complete system where you get to pick the components and you get to do, you know, everything you want to do, solicit the community for requests or suggestions on what you buy, put it together, talk about your experiences of building it, using it, and then give that system away back to the community." So that's what we did. Is I went to the Build a PC subreddit that is well known for their penny pinching capabilities, right? For making sure people are getting the most value for their dollar in terms of performance. And like, you know, it was sponsored by AMD because they help pay for all the parts, but they didn't put any restrictions on us. We bought an Intel processor, right, on an Intel platform. We didn't use anything other than what I think people that would actually be building a system at this price value would be using. The total build price for the system was just under $550, nice. Not including a monitor and that type of stuff. And that is a Core i3 6100 dual core hyper-threaded part. You know, 8 gigs of memory, both an SSD and a hard drive, a 240 gig SSD and a hard drive, a 1 terabyte hard drive, a micro ATX case, a 500 watt power supply, you know, everything you need to get up and running. I did include a monitor on that price list, but it's a little outside the price realm. Like the monitor itself is $250 for a FreeSync monitor. You can read the story there. I talk a little bit about why I chose that particular monitor, even there are less expensive FreeSync displays, simply because of things like low frame rate compensation and how that impacts the gaming performance. So I went through that and kind of did all the, you know, here's all the parts we picked and why, and thank the community for their suggestions. There were a lot of interesting information about how some budget builders will do things like only put a single 8 gigabyte DIMM in their processor or in their system, so you're only utilizing single channel memory controller. And what I did was I did two 4 gigs to get the 8 gigs total, because more recent games have been shown to have pretty substantial differences in performance in like those minimum frame rates when playing with single channel versus dual channel. Not so much into the frequency really of things. Yeah, but it is a recent change. And so it was just like, okay, well, let's take that out of the equation. We'll do this. And it didn't raise the price any of the system. So then the next piece we went through and, you know, showed, what did I show in particular? Rocket League at 1080p, Overwatch at 1080p, Doom running in Vulkan at 1080p, The Witness at 1080p. All these games are running at very playable frame rates. You know, Rocket League and Overwatch at the high quality presets, at over 100 frames per second. Doom on the low quality preset was at 68 frames per second, but still a very new, like, you know, won a lot of best game of 2016 awards as well. But still able to run it on this. It's a $98 XFX Radeon RX 460 video card with 2 gigs of memory. And it was able to do it pretty well. And part of the reason I agreed to do this story is I am as guilty as anybody of over focusing on the super high end. You know, most of the time, a lot of times I'm reviewing video cards that cost more than this entire computer. And that's not realistic for the mass mainstream gamer. So I definitely took AMD up on the offer to say, okay, let's go back a little bit. You're a teenager, you're a young person, or you just don't have a lot of money that you want to invest in a gaming PC. What do you get when you're spending less than $100 on your discrete graphics card and all the components that kind of go around with it? What makes the most sense? And I came away pretty impressed. You know, yeah, you could turn up image quality settings if you had a better video card. Yeah, you could have higher resolutions and all that type of stuff. But if you just sit down and play the games, they just work. And they look pretty good. Like Rocket League and Overwatch look amazing. Doom, you could tell it's a little bit lower quality than what I'm used to playing on a higher end GPU, but it still looks good. It's still a very playable experience. And the same thing with The Witness. So, you know, I kind of came away with a renewed appreciation of the mainstream budget gamer and what they have to deal with and the kind of decisions and sacrifices and trade-offs they have to make when building machines. You know, and you know, go to a LAN party like yeah, like most people's world, honestly. You go to QuakeCon and sure, there's going to be people there that are on $2,000 systems with SLI and water cooling and all that type of stuff. But the majority of people there are, they've got $600 PCs, or they've got OEM PCs they've upgraded the graphics on, and there's a huge range, and it was interesting to again take a renewed focus on the different segment that maybe we don't usually do enough of. So it was neat. Oh, and you can win the system, by the way. If you go look at those two articles, there's a contest page where I'm giving away the computer that we built as part of the deal with AMD. So you got a couple of weeks to enter for that, but you can check that out on PCPer.com. It's on there somewhere. Yeah.
Good to know. Go to PCPer.com and win yourself a nice machine that has, Ryan's DNA on it.
That's the second time somebody has told me that, and now I think I'm going to have it washed first.
Maybe it's a Deadpool line that I'm forgetting. Oh, man. Another Kickstarter fail, this time with lawsuits. There's nothing cheerful. There's nothing. I get no joy out of finding out that there's another failed Kickstarter project. This one's particularly brutal. The Lily Robotics, which had the sort of I will follow you super custom stylish selfie drone, was supposed to, basically people pre-ordered at $500, and the autonomous flying camera, no, that's not happening. They, basically they were supposed to start shipping, and then basically emailed, where is it? We'll start, December 2016. We will start shipping U.S. orders by late this month until early 2017. In the order they were placed, that was December 20th. And Wednesday last week, pardon me, they said they were closing, and it would return some $34 million it had received in pre-orders to its would-be customers. Was the line from Ryan Mack at Forbes.com. And then the next day, the San Francisco district attorney filed a civil consumer protection suit, basically saying that the launch video, which was cobbled together with a bunch of commercial drones, misrepresented the status of the project or the Lily capabilities. This is also brought out a large part of commentary. People are like, oh, if you're doing something amazing, you can't sell it initially cheap like that. It's too much performance at too small a size with too much hype from people who've never done it before at an incredibly low price, significantly lower, like more technology in a smaller package with no experience for less money than the most successful drone maker on the planet, is probably a warning sign. So it's, it's frustrating. I feel bad about that. They collected about $34 million in total. I do not know what return or refunds there are going to be, but the drones are not going to ship. So that's unfortunate.
Yep, disappointing.
So and to bring it up a little bit, if you are a compute module enthusiast, that would be the Raspberry Pi kind of like DIMM module, or Raspberry Pi and a DIMM, or SO-DIMM. Basically designed to be slotted into products, including, there's a really cool one, an adapter, for example, from Western Digital that attaches a hard drive. Basically, you plug a compute module into this device that attaches to a hard drive, and it creates this very small, discrete computing unit with a bunch of storage. They have upgraded it to the processor from the Raspberry Pi Model 3, which is pretty awesome because it's been around since 2014 running the first generation Raspberry Pi processor. So I think that's delightful. It's just pretty much the second update on that, and it's pretty good to see that's coming around. So good to have some updates.
Indeed.
Oh, my goodness. This Week in Computer Hardware is also brought to you by Grasshopper. a virtual phone system designed for entrepreneurs. Grasshopper works just like a traditional phone system, but requires no hardware purchase. With their iOS and Android app, callers can reach you wherever you are on your mobile phone. It allows you to keep your existing number so you can maintain your brand. When you make a call, your client will see your Grasshopper caller ID instead of your personal phone number. Just select a toll-free or local number, record a custom greeting, and add multiple extensions for your business, and you are good to go. And remember, toll-free numbers are a great way to market and make your business sound more professional. Set up department and employee extensions with custom call forwarding to any phone in the world. Get voicemails emailed to you as audio attachments. You can send and receive SMS and text messages from your business number. How cool is that? Join the over 250,000 Grasshopper customers today. Plans start at just $12 a month. You got a 30-day money-back guarantee. You should try it out, people. Turn your smartphone into a business line with Grasshopper. To save $50 on your order, go to trygrasshopper.com/twit. That's trygrasshopper.com/twit. We want to thank Grasshopper for their support. You have been trying to buy a Google Home, if memory serves.
Yes, the mesh networking product. No, no, wait. You're talking about the Assistant.
Yes.
No, I have not.
I'm thinking of, you've been trying to buy the Google Wi-Fi, though.
Yes,
is it
correct.
Still out of stock?
Still out of stock as of yesterday. I didn't check today, but yeah, I've been trying to buy the Google Wi-Fi. It's been out of stock.
Join the wait list
for at least a month. Man, yeah, and I don't want to do that.
Google Wi-Fi out of stock. I bring that up because Verge has a good article by Chris Welch. Google is doing a terrible job at shipping its Pixel smartphones.
Great.
Quote, an incredible phone is getting impossible to find. 128 gigabyte versions of the Pixel XL, according to Now in Stock Net's online tracker, have been out of stock at Google's online store since November 30th of last year. That's bad. Google's really big. They have a tremendous amount of resources and talent.
Do you think so? It's not in stock at Verizon either, or through the Google store. I mean, there's always the chance that like demand is amazingly high, but I don't really feel like that's the case. I don't see a lot of people like, I don't know, walking around with it or asking about it necessarily. But it's hard to do that if you can't buy the product. So, I have one and I really like it. We're prepping a review on it, but I'm not sure how useful that is if you can't buy anything. And it's supposed to be their flagship, Apple killer device.
We'll see. Google Pixel XL phone by Google, the Pixel phone by Google. I'm looking at Verizon and okay, looks like I can get a 128 gigabyte Pixel.
Yeah.
And let's see if I can get a 128 gigabyte Pixel XL.
Actually, Now in Stock.net tracks the Google Pixel on the Google store, so you can get the 32. You can get the Pixel in 32 or 128, but you can't get the XL anywhere.
You just gotta buy it from Verizon, which is its own punishment.
Yeah, well, it's the only network it's supposed to work on, I think, right? Or no, you can buy it unlocked, and then it'll work on anything. But they're only selling it.
I thought that was the whole point of it, selling from...
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there's Amazon listing for this phone for $1,500.
That's pretty crazy.
For the XL.
Yeah, Pixel XL, all of them are completely sold out. Unless you want to go to eBay. Yeah. Yeah, no interest in a 32 gigabyte phone.
No.
Gaming PCs, no. I'm your man. 32 gigabyte phones, emotionally traumatizing.
Yeah, that's a horrible idea. Yeah, the Google Pixel XL 128 gig on Amazon is $1,518. But it is Prime, so you don't have to pay for shipping. So there's that.
Yeah. That's a little higher than the $869 it's supposed to sell for.
That $1,500 price, by the way, is sold and shipped from Amazon. That's not a third-party reseller, which actually makes that quite a bit worse. Now that I'm looking at it,
Charge what the market will bear is what Dad always told me.
That is capitalism, I guess.
Well,
fortunately and unfortunately at different times.
It beats paper cups that don't hold soda and toilet paper you could use to refinish furniture.
Correct.
Thinking of some of my quality time in East Germany before the wall came down. In other Android news, Android One phones are reportedly coming to the U.S. Dieter Bahn wrote this up at The Verge. So, Android One targeted at developing markets. So super simple, clean Android phones, and apparently these are about to make it to the U.S. market. And a big part of the problem is less, part of it's the bloatware, the crappy services. The really nasty problem is the lack of security updates. It's. I'm curious. I'm very, very curious to see if these actually do show up in the United States, and who's going to manufacture them. Because a lot of one of the things that Mr. Baum points out is Android One phones are usually made by people you have never heard of, Micromax, Cherry, Q-Mobile, and it would be interesting. LG is a possible manufacturer for these in the United States, but I would really like to see some inexpensive Android phones that are actually updated. I think that sounds super awesome, but I'm also big on, security updates in general. From the death of the headphone jack front, HTC's new flagship phone has a second screen, AI, and no headphone jack. The 5.7-inch U Ultra, and starting at $749. So a little bit bigger than the Uplay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. Basically to the right of the front-facing camera above the main screen. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see a series of icons. Keep going. There it is. Those icons up in the right corner are a little 2-inch strip to the right of the camera. And
oh, yeah.
So that's your second screen. So,
I mean,
it's
okay, sure.
Notifications, reminders, music playback controls, stuff like that.
Looks like quick access to contacts.
It would be nice.
Okay, yeah. I mean, hey, at this point, anything that gets you more screen real estate, I'm a fan of, right? But you can't get rid of the front-facing camera because then I wouldn't be able to take my selfies.
Right.
So yeah,
and selfies are a big and important part of your life. It's kind of creepy.
Every day, God, yeah. I'm an Instagram model in my spare time.
I heard about the stuff you do on Snapchat too. The HTC U Ultra, 64 gigabytes of storage, $749. Blue, black, white, or pink. Those are going to start shipping outside of Taiwan in March. The U Ultra, will be the special version of the HTC Ultra, or the limited edition version of the U Ultra. The special edition is going to have a sapphire glass screen, which, given the abuse to screens that I am known for, is very, very exciting. But also 128 gigabytes of storage. Unfortunately, no pricing or launch date for that. So, interesting offering from HTC. And because apparently people want to start torturing Apple and Samsung over their next generation phones, LG has announced, 95 Google's got this right up, a 5.7-inch QHD Plus display with 18:9 aspect ratio for its next flagship smartphone. So this will be the G6, and LG's obviously trying to build anticipation around that because they've been having a rough time with their. I thought all these phones were supposed to come out at Mobile World Congress or some show or something. Did I miss an event that I should have attended or something, like between CES and now, where all these phones are coming from? Yeah, this is. Yeah, I found this story and I was kind of fascinated. I don't know if it was, apparently they sent out the announcement January 10th from Seoul, Korea. LG Display, the world's leading innovator of display technologies, announced today it will introduce the world's first 5.7-inch QHD Plus LCD panel with an 18:9 aspect ratio, which, I have been waiting, I think, my entire life for a phone with an 18:9 aspect ratio, and I think it's fantastic that LG is the first one to get there.
Yeah. I'm open to the idea. I haven't been waiting my whole life, but I'm open to the idea.
You know what it is? LG Display did the announcement that they would be providing this screen to LG Electronics for its flagship smartphone this year.
I see.
Together for me now.
So they didn't announce the phone for it yet. That will come next month, I'm guessing, at Mobile World Congress. Okay. All right. I'm with you.
Yes, we've gone from 4x3 to 3x2, 5x3, 16.9. Lately, says LG Display, a 17:9 ratio display has been introduced. And due to increasing consumer demands for bigger screens, LG Display developed the 18:9 aspect ratio display to provide more immersive viewing experience. So QHD Plus is 1440 by 2560. No, they were doing, so that's what makes it the Plus. It's 1440 by 2880 with 564 pixels per inch. So interesting. It's all coming together for me now, Ryan.
Finally, everything can be fulfilled.
Speaking of which, finals and endings in Android. And, sorry. Over 96% of Galaxy Note 7 phones have been returned to date. And what I'm kind of curious is how long it's going to be before, in theory, there are a few hundred still floating around there. Which is tough because that means they've, back in December, Samsung basically sent out a software update to break charging on the Note 7s. So, at that point, they had 85% of the affected devices. Now they have, after shutting down the ability to charge, they're up to 96% of the affected devices.
I would think the rest of them are dead by now. To the point where maybe Delta can stop telling me about it before every flight I get on.
You're going to hear that for years. Which is really the most frustrating thing about the exploding Note 7.
For the rest of us, at least.
On that bright and cheerful note, ladies and gentlemen, PCPer.com is the place to find more of Ryan Shrout's work and the place you should go if you'd like to win the Radeon RX 460 budget PC build PC. That's PCPer.com. You can find me at techthing.com or avxl.com. On one, we geek out about all the tech, and the other one, we geek out about home theater and audio and entertainment with Robert Heron and Shannon Morse as my co-host on Tech Thing. You can find more of us at twit.tv/Twitch. Hey, thank you so much for listening. And do us a favor, tweet at Ryan Shrouder, at Patrick Norton. If you got a hardware question, we'll try to address it next week. But for right now, we got to go. And I'm Patrick Norton.
I'm Ryan Shrouder.
See you next week on Twitch.